The Rockpile Report, the pettiest, hardest drinking Bills podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I'm your host, Bills season ticket holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. Ryan Lasel from Rock Sports Network riding shotgun as we open up about NFL Wild Card Weekend. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Can we get through this?
At the Buffalo Bills.
No mention of it in the review. I don't know why I didn't miss it. But it's the beginning of a new calendar year. And with that means, well, we're still going with that. It's not over yet until the season is officially over. But we are on a network. Blue Wire, Allegedly. Blue Wire pays us money. Look at that. We got another camera angle in the studio.
You see this?
I failed to mention it in the recap for those that watch on YouTube. Look at that. We got multiple camera angles.
Chris says, look at that like you and I can see anything.
Yeah, like I care. Listen, I'm the focal point at all times.
Well, just
because that's what narcissists do.
Just
they are the center of the universe.
Just wait until we have no guests. So now we have multiple angles of your teeth.
You need multiple angles to see all of them.
You almost need them. It's like Easter Island. Yeah. Each one of them has their own personality. You have to try to capture it from the right angle when the when it hits it just right. No, guys, Chris did a really good job. Again, just Chris being a great producer has put together, again, it's with the ATEM and now camera switching, and he's doing it in real time.
Yeah, we got three. I don't like.
It's almost like he knows what he's doing, folks.
But I don't like. I mean, this is. I don't know how much that these camera angles that you're seeing are going to be the same when we have guests in studio. I'll have to.
He's still freewheeling. He's feeling it out.
We're gonna have to put Chris to the test because he's already super impressive in studio. We're gonna see how he does taking the show on the road.
It would be
multiple camera angles from a remote location. We'll have to figure it out.
Only one of these cameras would work.
Bring them all.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry.
If anyone can figure it out, Chris can.
So, our time for the game is 1 p.m. Eastern Standard.
Finally!
The 1 p.m.
Finally!
When I saw that we were the 1 p.m. game, regardless of what happened, I was like, thank God.
Yeah, God, I'll be home before bedtime.
Can I toot my own horn on this?
You toot away.
So, I am a giant nerd when it comes to sports media and networks and what network is getting what game? Should this game get flexed, at the end of the season or all that stuff? I was talking to one of our long-tenured listeners, Jason Hicksonbaugh, and I wrote up a note in my phone, and I'm like, this is where I think all of the games are going to be scheduled for Super Wild Card Weekend. Saturday night and Sunday night, I got those wrong. They were flipped. I got
right game, wrong day.
Right game, wrong day. Everything else I got correct. I predicted Tampa and Philadelphia on Monday night. Bills getting the 1 o'clock slot. If anybody follows sports media, you knew as soon as it was in stone, Dallas and Green Bay, you knew that was Sunday 4:30.
Yeah.
And then same concept. You knew Houston was Saturday 4:30.
Yeah, Houston.
There's no other time slot that Houston gets other than Saturday.
That's true. Houston has always played.
It's not a super wild card weekend if it's not opening with Houston. It just doesn't feel right.
Houston playing that slot is actually pretty accurate.
Let me ask you this: do both of you have Peacock?
I do. Yeah.
I don't.
I do because I am a WWE guy. Okay. I have Peacock for all the
pay-per-views. I just steal things because I'm a scumbag.
All right.
Well, you said it.
Because that Chiefs-Dolphin game is Peacock only.
Yeah, good luck.
It needs to be on NBC just based on the weather for that game. Kansas City is getting Buffalo-style weather for that game, which Miami deserves.
They both deserve it.
Everyone.
They both deserve that
game.
Whoa.
We're getting our share of weather. Right here, the weather report for this game. Snowy, high at 23 degrees, 20 mile an hour per winds. Now, what I will say,
this is what I want to know.
There's a little risk of lake effect.
Who's got the tickets?
I hope
right now.
I hope Drew does because I'm hanging with him.
Right now, Lasel's taking yours.
All right.
So Lasel's taking your seat.
It's in good hands, Chris.
We're waiting to see whether Potter can get off of work or not. Otherwise, I have 2 open, and I'm just trying to figure out
wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Slide into his DMs if you're interested.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to do here.
Maybe some type of listener giveaway.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Because
how many people want to be sandwiched between Lasel and Drew in the cold weather to watch this game?
Say what you want, but I was trying to sell Paul Wineski from #Sports on coming with Mario and I before Mario was unable to come. I told Paul, I said, we'll keep you warm. He said between the two of us, and Drew and I will keep you warm.
Paul weighs 108 pounds.
Well,
he wears a men's. He wears what I assume is a child's large as a man's t-shirt.
Paul. To be fair to Paul, he's skinny. But he's really bigger than you expect him to be. But he's always hanging out with me and Mario and you.
Yeah, but then we go to the bar. But then we go to the bar and we're sitting there and he's perched on his chair like a goddamn owl. And I go, "There's no one I know on earth who can sit like that except for you because you're built like a bird."
Hollow bones.
Let me ask you this: if Paul was going to take an extra ticket? How is he not automatically in for 2 with the size of his ears?
That's true. That's true. And that was one of the problems with Mario is he was gonna come and then he remembered that he was gonna have to pay separate to get his forehead in, and he decided he didn't want to do that either. So,
guys, we have Carl Sheffers as our official tonight, which we're going to talk about later in the podcast. On the call, Chris, who do we get?
CBS has 1 game. It's Nance and Romo.
Oh, we get Nance and Romo for Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph should be.
You're going to be
lucky.
At the game. Who do you care? Why do you care?
But Mason Rudolph doesn't deserve Nance and Romo. I guess that's
It'll just
the point.
be a Josh fest. It'll be a Josh love fest.
I hope so.
Because Nance and Romo love them some Josh.
Injuries of note. Buffalo has a laundry list of players who are considered day-to-day, according to the head coach. Rasul Douglas, Gabe Davis, Taylor Rapp. It'll be interesting to see as the week progresses how these guys... I feel like we're getting no Gabe Davis. I feel like this is a game that you probably don't
That's
push.
Fine. They haven't had Gabe Davis for 6 weeks.
Especially if you have a wonky knee. The one thing we don't... And Douglas.
Well, the interesting thing about Douglas is he said it after the game he could go. He could have gone.
Yeah, but that's not his call. They took his helmet away, so...
Because he was trying to get back out.
Yeah, because he was trying to get back out there.
Question on Gabe Davis. If Gabe Davis is a no-go, is it Sherfield in his spot?
It's Sherfield because you still need a blocking wide receiver.
Okay, well, I think that works out in the Bills' favor because what tape exists of Sherfield in a Bills'
The helmet deflection from last week.
They can all sit around and go, "Hey guys, if it bounces off a guy's face, cover Sherfield."
The better question really is more. It's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest. Like if Gabe Davis doesn't suit up, does anybody notice? Because he's not out there anyway.
Well, here's what I'll say: wet conditions, gross things. Anybody who has a knee injury,
I've got Ryan.
I would be skeptical if the team would risk
Ryan,
him.
I've got a follow up. Gabe Davis does play. Any idea what his stat line was the last time he was in a playoff game? Nance and Romo called.
Was that the Kansas City Chiefs game? The 4-touchdown playoff record.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Gabe Davis he can be the best wide receiver in the NFL once a season. So
for Pittsburgh, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Safety Minka Fitzpatrick's going to come back, or at least that's the word on the street.
Not worried.
TJ Watt out.
Yeah.
And that MCL. Like, imagine you make the playoffs. You fight so hard to get your team there, and then you take the biggest casualty that you possibly...
Well, because you had to fight so hard to get there, right? He got hurt in that last game.
Yeah.
Because they had to win it. So.
I mean...
Miami knows how that goes.
Yes, they do.
Bradley Chubb.
The statistic is they're 1 in 10 without him.
This just in. Team not good when best player is out.
Yeah,
right?
shocker. So, guys, first of all, let's talk about the tailgate. 1 p.m., kind of nice. Dock slot, 4180 Abbott Road. The weather is a dice roll. It could be manageable. It could be a disaster.
Do you have
no idea.
A menu
Well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make what is quintessential winter food. I'm going to make my patented steak chili with a side bucket of Reaper chili.
Oh,
That's hot enough. It won't kill you. It's hot enough you don't want to add hot sauce to it. And at the same time, it's got that Reaper flavor, that sweetness that comes out of the pepper. I'm going to bring them both. Some crusty Italian bread. We're going to have sausages. We're going to have a lot of other finger foods and things flying around.
Various cured meats.
Various things flying around.
How would you not
fun.
do this tailgate without doing your own style of Permane Brothers?
Because Permane Brothers is stupid, and let me tell you why. Like, I hear it's a hack radio bit to be like, I'm going to attack the other city's food, man. Ugh.
Like the Steelers are boycotting buffalo wings.
I already saw that.
Go ahead and eat boneless wings. That'll show us.
Yeah.
You go eat your chicken
like,
nuggets.
guys, eat boneless wings this weekend. Don't eat real wings.
Yeah.
You're only hurting yourself. You're an idiot.
You enjoy your boneless nuggets.
You are a child.
Yeah.
Everyone is doing this as a child, and you should be ashamed. No, I don't know. Permane Brothers, it's this idea. Like, I went there, and I asked the guy, I go, hey, so how about that challenge that the guy on Man vs. Food did? Does that really exist? And he looked at me, he goes, no, we just made that up for the show. I go, so you're not even going to lie to me and try to create the theater?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was fake. Give me one of these stupid sandwiches. Oh, you're going to give me unbattered French fries. So they're not going to be all that crispy, especially when you put them on a sandwich with a bunch of mayo and slaw and other dress. So all I'm going to have is a big, wet, soggy thing with some extra potato thrown on it. No, thank you. You're not smart. This is how a child makes a sandwich. They go, hey, I have some meat, and I have this thing, and I'll grab these fries, and I mash them up, and I put it in my face. We've watched our children do this.
Yeah.
Why do people think that Permane Brothers is special?
My son loves potato chips on
You know what I witnessed yesterday? So Jessica had a bit of a rough day at the office. So there was it was just one of those things where because I'm overnight, I'm not waking up on a Tuesday until 3:00, and Jessica's got a rough day. So she was uninterested in cooking dinner.
Or talking to you.
That too. So we went to Connor's in West Seneca, over by West Seneca West.
Yeah.
So her son Benton got a hot dog, and it came with fries and applesauce. Now, mind you, I have made this kid before, chicken and macaroni and cheese, but he refused to put them together. Like, chicken and macaroni cheese together sounds delicious.
Places serve that.
Yes. This kid at Connor's was dipping his French fries in applesauce.
That's wild.
Yeah, I'm like, Ben, these two things don't go together. Like, fries and applesauce together? No. Chicken and macaroni and cheese? Yes, please. He has this weird thing where he combines foods that don't go together.
I feel like he's maybe doing it just to upset you, which
he is.
That's half the things I do. It's just to make you mad.
So, Ryan, let me on this. So, when I started dating Jessica, sometimes I would come over for dinner. This is probably we're almost a year into dating, because 6 months after we started dating is when I met her son. And Drew and I had this thing where we're going to try to scare this child into not doing a food crime.
Steak on ketchup.
Steak on ketchup. Oh, okay. We were going to do a thing where Drew was I'm
going to dress up in a suit and get on the podium.
Suit.
Remember the Rock Pile Report podium with the backdrop?
I remember the podium very well.
Yeah, it would have been a felony if you put ketchup on steak.
I was going to announce that I was the mayor, and I was announcing that it's now a crime to put ketchup on steak. And we were going to shoot a video of it, and he was going to edit it and add a ticker and the whole nine, make it look official. And we were going to play it for the kid and be like, you better stop doing that.
Yeah, and then he met Drew, and
then he met me, and it all
figured it out. Yeah.
Kids like steak with ketchup, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Children, though. Children. Yes. If you're an adult doing that, I feel like it's one of those things like overseas when they catch you stealing and they take your hands.
Yeah.
I'll take your hands. Like that would in Drew Gear's America, we take your hands for putting ketchup on steak. Now, Chris, we're playing the Steelers this week, and the Steelers are a team, like, whether you like to admit it or not, they've kind of been around, and they've kind of been a thorn in our side.
Mm-hmm. I thought this was the part where you talk about how you don't like any of their content creators.
Well, I mean, I don't. We talked about it. We went down the list. We were like, who? I mean, we used to Steel City Underground, Joe Kuzma. He's not bad. It's hard to get a hold of. It's not his fault. It's probably our fault. Either way. I look at everybody else who makes their content and I go, Yinzer, you're not allowed. I can't talk to you. Or I hear him talk, and the moment I hear anything that sounds like a Philly accent, I just flip my laptop and I leave the room. Like, oh, you're not an actual Pittsburghian. And they go, well, I transferred here and I drank the water. Fuck you. You're out. You're cut from the team. The Steelers have been a pain in the Bills' ass for a long time. Mm-hmm. Go back to the 90s. Go back to the 70s. They've always had our number. I remember a game where EJ Manuel finally returns from injury, goes to Pittsburgh. We score 7 points.
I remember that game. Yeah.
It was the most throwaway game of the Bills. Chris and I.
Do you want me to say it?
What?
Do you want me to say it? You want?
Yeah.
Oh, come on! I can't believe we can't host and producer telepathically connect.
You don't think?
Hold on. Willie Parker.
Yeah. There's been a lot of things. There's been a
Willie
lot of
Parker
things that have happened, but also you think about this. The Bills have played each other every single season since 2019. Mm-hmm. Which is weird. Yeah. I feel like that's a weird anomaly in NFL scheduling that
isn't the same with the Chiefs, right?
We shouldn't keep running into each other like this.
I mean, well, we finished in first place in the division, same with the Chiefs.
But the Steelers?
No.
Yeah, and that's why it's weird that we keep being paired up with them. And every time we do play them, there's something, right? There's some juice to the game. You go back to 2020, it was playoff seeding. And it was a division title race that the Bills were involved in. 2019, it was Allen, Duck Hodges.
Oh, Duck Hodges. I remember that.
What about the block punt?
Well, yeah, 2021, it was trying to show everybody, hey, listen, we lost the AFC title game, but it's AFC championship game. Excuse me. But it doesn't matter because we're going to start this season hot. It's going to come at the expense of the Steelers. And then a blocked punt and a bunch of just offensive mistakes culminates in you losing a football game to the Steelers? What? And everyone immediately looked at that season and went, ooh, this is going to be rough. There's turbulence coming.
Yeah.
And there was. And there was.
It certainly was.
And it's just one of these things. 2019 is my favorite, though, because of the Duck Hodges game. There was legitimate conversation about whether or not Duck Hodges was a better quarterback than Josh Allen.
I remember that.
Can you imagine how crazy it would be to say out loud right now? Duck Hodges, CFL quarterback versus Josh Allen, leading the NFL in touchdowns.
Yeah.
But that's the world we lived in. And they went into Sunday Night Football, and it was a big deal. And we barely won that football game. Because Josh Allen wasn't quite...
I didn't get this memo, but on April 22nd, 2022, Duck Hodges retired from the Ottawa Red Blacks.
Oh. So former CFL quarterback Duck Hodges.
This is the thing that I always joke about comedy and also podcasting. If you retire from doing a thing that nobody knew you were doing in the first place, like, who do you tell?
Did you actually retire?
Who do you report this to? Do you go, hey, CFL office, and it's just one lady at a desk? She's like, sure, I'll write it down. Whatever. I'll make a note. Whenever you retire.
Ryan, what's your knowledge of country music?
Not great.
Apparently, he's dating Lainey Wilson.
I do know who Lainey Wilson is.
So, I mean, he retired from football and fell up in his relationship.
He's like you.
He's like a poor man's Travis Kelce.
He's like you. He just somehow fell upwards.
You failed upwards.
Now, When you think back to the quarterbacks in this game, obviously there was Duck Hodges, Big Ben, and Kenny Pickett were the people involved in these games. There was the 2022 game where we just mowed them down.
That was the 99-yard Gabe Davis touchdown, right?
Yeah, that was Gabe Davis.
The aforementioned Gabe Davis.
There was Gabe Davis lighting them on fire, and then Shane Gillis being drunk in the crowd, getting the jersey from Gabe Davis.
There was that.
And ESPN, before someone corrected them, posting a picture of it, talking about, like, Gabe Davis gives special needs, man, and Shane to this day talks about it. Where he's like this. He goes, someone framed it for me. Like that.
That's fantastic.
Just gave it to.
You were also not in the stands for that touchdown pass.
No, I was, as I usually am when good things happen, in the bathroom.
Oh, God. It was the first play of the game. You hadn't even gone through the gate. Don't lie to yourself.
He was still standing in line.
So, now you come into this and you have this guy in Mason Rudolph who's trying to pick up the mantle where all of these other jokers, like a past his prime Big Ben that we played, and I think that's the only one they won, was that first game, 2021, in the last stanza. We've pretty much, 3-1 over the span
3-1
of the last 4. And now Mason Rudolph is going to come in here and try to be the guy who changes everything.
Mason Rudolph, best known for getting his head caved in by Myles Garrett with his own helmet.
Yeah, it's actually funny. There was a game against the Cleveland Browns where Myles Garrett picked up a helmet and everyone went, whoa, on the field, and it was like a funny moment of like, whoa, and you had to see Myles Garrett go, come on, guys, I'm just.
At least we can all laugh about it. I'm not sure if Mason Rudolph still laughs about it.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still.
I'm sure he probably doesn't throw around the N-word on the field anymore, at least.
Well, yeah, don't say that. If you say that, you might get hit with things.
It's like F around and find out, right?
It's almost Chris, it's almost a universal constant. Like, if you just walk around saying that word, eventually
you're going to say it to the wrong person.
You become what I call a shit magnet, which is just you start to pull all the bad shit towards you. Eventually, it finds you.
Yeah. Eventually, you're going to say it in front of the wrong person.
So in that way, the Steelers are going to come in here with a Mason Rudolph-led team, and they're going to try to upset the Buffalo Bills, and it's going to be an interesting thing to watch happen. I don't know all of the mechanics, which is why we turn to smarter people than myself, and that brings us to tonight's guest. And so with that, we welcome to the program, as I'm about to take my first sip of a citrus pills from Genesee, Mr. EJ,
Rochester's finest.
Yeah, Mr. EJ Snyder from Bootleg Football. EJ, your laugh there tells me that you're not exactly impressed by this citrus pills by Genesee Brewing that I'm about to taste.
Anything from Genesee. So, as you know, I grew up in the southern tier, just south of Ithaca, and Genesee was certainly the water of choice for a great many in my community and others. All varieties. Now they have many more varieties. Of course, there was no citrus pills in those days. But, Jenny 12 Horse and Jenny
12 Horse is still the goat.
12
Horse is still the goat.
12 Horse is one of those beers that our local beer store consumers will have it buy one, get one every now and again for 6-packs. And I'll buy them. I'll buy a 12. And I get home and I get to beer number 7 and I go, fuck, this is why I stopped buying
it makes you pay. It makes you pay for it. That's for sure.
This is why I stopped drinking.
Well, why it's called 12 Horse, right?
Why?
Because that's how many equines it takes to pull you off the toilet after you've had it.
Guys, for those of you who live under a rock, EJ Snyder, co-host of the Bootleg Football Podcast, coming to us from his amazing studio. We got to see it all from start to finish. What you had before compared to where you are now, it's like night and day. So your hard work is paid off.
Speaking of living under a rock.
Yeah, hard work has definitely paid off. You're a suffering Bears fan.
Especially today. We're just gonna raise one to the 2024 season as lost and go.
It'll be okay, EJ. Listen,
it won't.
Here's what I'm gonna do for you and Bears fans and every other fan base that didn't make the NFL postseason that's at home suffering right now. The thing you have to do is you have to look at the team you root for, and I believe it was the coach of the Colts who had cancer. What was his name there?
Pagano.
when they asked him, they go, "Are you worried you're going to lose you're going to worried you got to go into these meetings with the owners?" And he laughed and looked at the guy. He goes, "They can't eat me." They can't. The Bears can't eat you, EJ.
They can't eat me, but they apparently can't eat Matt Eberflus either, and that seems equally terrible. No, we're not here to talk about the Bears, but no, it is not a banner day in Bears fandom. We are here to talk about a team that made the postseason, which is fantastic. Actually, a couple of teams, but one more fantastic than the others. Let's be honest.
So, we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're a weird animal. Like, for those of you who are watching the YouTube show, you're going to see here over the next few minutes, we're going to talk about how this team made a pivot in the middle of the season. Everybody, they made waves. Literally a whole stadium chanting that they should fire their offensive coordinator was finally loud enough that the owners and the coaches and the GMs heard them. And they eventually fired Matt Canada. And Matt Canada was leading the Steelers. When people look at this, because I'm already seeing the tweets and the graphics and people trying to statistically compare what the Steelers are now in the aggregate to what the Bills are now in the aggregate. And I think that's a very flawed way of looking at football, as do you, which is why I appreciate.
Well, in this particular case, I agree with you in general. The concept is sound. Like, you don't just look at a team, especially over a season as long as the NFL's, and say they are what they were when we played them in September or whatever else. But in a very weird way, this matchup is the mirror image. And that's the part that makes it really fascinating is I'm not going to steal all your thunder on the Steelers, but like you of all fans should recognize the Steelers.
And that's what I love about this because this is what I loved is watching how it changed. After the firing of Matt Canada, people go, "Oh, they found their offense. They're scoring points. They're winning football games. Mason Rudolph, he's a revelation. He's bringing them success." Do you know what Mason Rudolph isn't doing? He's just not turning the ball over. He has 3 touchdowns. 3. When you try as a Bills fan, try to wrap your head around the idea that there's a football team that can win multiple games over the course of a 4 or 5 week stretch, and they've only thrown 3 touchdown passes. That's a wild thing to try to wrap your head around. It gets easier when you take a look at why they were losing before. When they rolled out Mitch Trubisky, one of the biggest things when you look at throws over 10 to 20 air yards, you see almost the exact same yardage that Mason Rudolph has. You just mixed in 7 more turnovers. The reality is, by cutting down your downfield passing attempts and kind of steering right into the strength of what you are, which is this big, ugly, nasty football team, they've found a way to steady themselves and at least stop giving their opponent free points. And in that way, they've started to win football games, albeit against some questionable talents. So, EJ, I could stand here and pound the table and pontificate about all the things I think they are. I'm more interested to get your take on this. Mason Rudolph, isn't it funny to you, just as an evaluator of football talent, as a guy who who follows the draft and sees the way guys get scouted and drafted and then treated after they're drafted, that Mason Rudolph is the savior of the Steelers season?
It's, again, when you talk about the reality, I think you set it up really well, of how the Steelers pivoted, because they fired Matt Canada and things got, magic fairy dust, things got better. Well, that's not how it happens. And what really happens is, I would say certainly on the defense and special teams, for the most part, a tightly coached team stop making mistakes, and guess what? You're going to win more football games. I get that. So Mason Rudolph aside, you had to bring up Mitch. This is just old home week all over again. Like, I'm just taking shots from all corners.
Remember the time he was in a Bears uniform at the Pro Bowl?
I remember all those times.
Everyone just
I wish I didn't. That would be the thing. If I drank and blacked out, which I don't, I wouldn't have all those terrible memories of the dumb stuff that I've witnessed, including the end of Trubisky's tenure. At the beginning of Trubisky's tenure, I am on record, I was all for that move. I had a lot of hope about it. Didn't turn out well. But Mason Rudolph, let's be honest, looks better because he followed Kenny Pickett, who was middling under Canada, and you can assign blame somewhat equally there. Kenny Pickett didn't do a great job. Canada did an abysmal job. Then Trubisky comes in because Pickett gets hurt. So if you're the third act and Mitch Trubisky is who you're following, it's not like, okay, let's give it up for Eddie Murphy and now coming to the stage. You don't have to follow that, right? It's like the guy before you bombed, and now you can come on and be very average and look great. And Mason Rudolph's doing that. So while the Steelers season and the Bills season, I said, are kind of mirror images because, hey, you both dropped your offensive coordinator after different amounts of noise. I would say the noise for Matt Canada was much louder and much longer. And from all corners, the noise for Ken Dorsey was sort of up and down. But a clear difference occurred with the Bills when they made the change as well. So that's the part you recognize. The part you don't recognize is Mason Rudolph throwing 3 touchdowns and Josh accounting for 40 plus by himself. Like,
Yeah.
That's just not the same guy. And as complicated as we can make this, and often do, there's a lot of nuance, and you and I both love digging into that. Sometimes it's as simple as their guy is way better than your guy. And even if everything else was equal, which it's not, we'll get into that, that guy gives you a way better chance than that guy, period, end of story. And sometimes, especially in the playoffs, it is just that simple.
So, Ryan, do you know that Mitch Trubisky's going to start a playoff game, but he's the lowest paid quarterback on the roster for Pittsburgh?
Mason Rudolph. Yeah.
The lowest paid quarterback on the roster. That's almost insulting. Like, you got paid less than Mitch Trubisky? Why? The Steelers didn't like you that much?
You know why? You know why.
I do know why.
You know why.
It is pretty funny.
It was your GM.
So...
Because one of them backed up Josh Allen and the other one didn't.
I mean, it's Brandon Beane
It is
coming out
nice.
doing one of the all-time con jobs, second only to Mike McCarthy saying, I watched a year worth of film. Brandon Beane comes out and says, I would let Trubisky marry my daughter.
So...
What?
So when we talk about this a little bit, to try to give people an idea of what schematically this team really is, so they can kind of make their peace with it.
Sure.
There's this funny wrinkle I found when I was looking at the statistics of the Steelers. And in all these games that Mason Rudolph has played, you have one wide receiver and one running back who lead the team in targets. No more, no less, and no one will ever step in between that. It is by design that they go into each game with an idea that, okay, based on what we think we see, this is going to be the Deontay Johnson game. And this is where we're going to make a concerted effort to get him and him the football. You know, there was a game, was it the Patriots they beat? I believe they beat
Which team?
Patriots was the one they hammered. Yeah. Steelers. Yeah.
Steelers.
Yeah.
So and then you look at Pickens and his stat line was like non-existent. People go, oh, see, we don't need him. And I go, no. That just wasn't his game. They just didn't pick him that week. Because the way their offense is structured, we don't throw the ball with a ton of intent. We try not to do it. If anything, if we don't have to, they try to live in this world where they say we've got a couple good tight ends who are really good run blockers. Darnell Washington is he's massive and he's athletic, so he makes for a good chess piece in a run blocking game. He can do some unorthodox things for you in run blocking. At the same time, Pat Freiermuth is that guy who's just old reliable. He's not a Dalton Kincaid. He's not going to regularly be testing linebackers' ability to cover in space in his zone, right? Or he'll rarely force a defensive coordinator to say, I better put an extra safety in the box to account for that guy. But what will happen is, but he's targeted, and you watch him, and then you'll watch him churn out a game where he quietly just has 60, 70 yards, multiple first downs, and you go, oh, okay, that guy has a role. This is his role. And then you watch them feed the two running backs. And that has become kind of the nuts and bolts of this offense. We've got a couple explosive receivers. We've got a gadget guy who is like their Isaiah McKenzie that the Bills kept trying to make happen. And so, I mean, he's a young player, Kevin Austin, so it's not that it can't happen. It just hasn't. And they feed that. It's basically they live almost between the hashes. This is where that's where their offense lives and dies. Now, am I wrong in anything that I've just said? Because I'm watching your face.
I don't know about wrong. Like, I think give Pat Freiermuth a real quarterback. Like, let's say a top 15 quarterback.
If he was on this team,
he certainly showed the skills in college to be way more dynamic than the way they use him. You're not wrong about the way they do use him or Washington. And the running attack is really interesting because, again, they tried to do the square peg round hole thing early in the year. They had Najee, and they tried to run outside zone under Canada, and Najee's not great at outside zone, and therefore their rushing attack was dog doo-doo for the first third of the year.
Can you name me an Alabama running back who is really good at outside zone?
Well, that's the other thing about football apocalypse today. I assume you heard that Saban retired.
It was after listening to a whole season of him whinge about NIL and the transfer portal. I was like, no, this is going to come faster than most people think. I still wasn't ready for it to be today, but I'm not shocked because
crazy factoid, and then we'll get back to the Steelers running game. Pete Carroll, who was also retired today, moved upstairs in the Seahawks office, and then, of course, later Nick Saban started coaching in the exact same year. They both started coaching in 1973.
Wow.
Which means they both coached exactly 50 years, and they both retired. 100 years of football knowledge between two guys on the same day. That's like unreal.
Saban has unreal stats, man. Like when you go like deep dive Saban stats, you know Saban has 16 more first round draft picks than losses. There's not a single player that played for Alabama under Saban that stayed for 4 years that doesn't have a national title. I mean, like the dude was like,
you look at what he accomplished. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's not that many guys that Bill Belichick looks up to in football, period. Like in the entire football world. Like there's his dad, and then there's like Nick Saban, who's, I'm not going to say is his dad, but at least his contemporary, which there are very few people that Belichick regards that way. And if Belichick moves on, we can add him to that list, and it'll just blow all our minds. It'll be a true football apocalypse. But back to the Steelers running game. In the middle of the year, they went, hey, we're not going to get rid of Canada yet, but this Jaylen Warren guy has way more juice, which we've been pounding the table for weeks and weeks as, no, he is, if you're going to do this, he's your best running back, period. Not only catching the football, but also rushing the football, and he was much more explosive than Najee. Now that they've gotten rid of Canada, they've gone back to saying, we're not going to do outside zone. We're going to do almost exclusively inside zone. And guess who we're going to have lead that effort? Because Jaylen Warren's good at that, but Najee is better at that one particular thing. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about the way they set up their wide receiver game, I'm reminded of the way they set up their running back game as well, which is, and we say this about the Steelers a lot, they are not a full U team.
Nope.
They are not a full U team on offense. They are not a full U team on defense. If you look at their defense, they're a line it up and our guys are better than your guys. We're going to come in with about 6 calls. Now, it's a few more than that based on variation, but like we're coming in. We're not trying to hide stuff on tape in the preseason. Nope. We're not trying to do exotic stuff.
Because it's not pretty. It's not fancy.
You do not
it's
see
not
a
technical.
lot of late rotation.
It's
you do not see a lot of motion.
It's physicality.
They show up and they go, this is what we're going to do.
Yes.
You know we're going to do it. We can do it better than you can do it. And they're actually sort of morphing back into that on offense, which is, hey, like you said, we're a big, ugly football team. We are strong in the trenches. We are going to run between the tackles. We're going to do it with Najee. You ready? And to that point, probably one of the Bills' most important players in the whole thing is Daquan Jones, because the Bills got run out of the playoffs last year because they couldn't stop inside runs. And it was because of an injury. This year, Daquan Jones, healthy, stopping the run on the interior, much better than the Bills have stopped in the past. That's sort of an unheralded part of their change in this late season win streak. And that's going to be like pure focus. If you want to watch the two lines, it's like Daquan Jones versus all the duo he's going to see, and can he get hands on Najee? And if he can, Steelers got nothing.
Well, and they got to figure out a way. The Steelers do is where the Bills I think are going to excel is if they're going to throw the doubles. They got to pick a guy, right? They've either got to double Daquan Jones or they've got to double Ed Oliver. And if you try to double Ed Oliver, he's first in the league in quarterback pressures when double teamed. So he gets penetration big time when he's double teamed. So they're going to have to pick their poison, and it'll be interesting to see early where they go with those types of doubles.
And in a run-heavy scenario, the one thing that has rounded out Ed Oliver's game, and it's the one thing that, like, it's not only Ed Oliver's kind of ascension this year, because he did the thing. We're used to seeing, if you're a Bills fan, you're jaded when you see a team pay a defensive tackle, because you go, Marcel Darius just fucked us.
Right, yeah, not that long ago.
He literally got his check, put on a boat hat, and put a spliff in his mouth and went, hey, I made it. And you were like, wait a minute, no. Oh, no, I thought you were the guy. Oh, damn it. So you watch them pay another D tackle, and you intrinsically, just reflexively want to say, this is a bad investment. Instead, what you're watching is the guy who spent most of last season nicked up, wasn't 100%, but we paid him anyway after what seemed on paper like a mediocre season, and everyone goes, oh, you're paying him you're taking a flyer. No, I think they trusted. They said, listen, we trust the development, we trust our coaches, we think he can be this guy. He had a Pro Bowl worthy season.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
with that in mind, his tackle for loss numbers are pretty good. He's been very disruptive against the run, more so than he has been before in his career.
Mm-hmm.
When you try to go to these duo concepts and you say, okay, we're going to take on Daquan Jones, I think the other wrinkle that we have to combat that, because right now I'm looking at their stat lines against the Seattle Seahawks. When I saw that game on paper, I said, there's no way the Steelers win this game. And somehow they pull this thing out. And then you look and you go, oh, Najee Harris hit 122 yards on 27 carries. 27 is the number of passes that Tua threw in that last game, I think. Like, it's close. They know where their bread gets buttered. And so they said, listen, Najee, you're going to be our guy. We're going to feed you. He beat them up between the tackles. He was averaging 7.5 yards per touch. Multiple 10-yard plus runs when running in between off center, off guard. You need to be able to beat that up and break that up so that your linebackers can flow and make plays. Well, the team was forced by Daquan Jones' absence to go get Linval Joseph. And a part of me wonders if this isn't a game where you take a look at your rotation and go, we don't need pass rushers.
Yeah, we don't need Von Miller.
I don't need Von Miller. I don't need Jordan Phillips. I don't even really need a Tim Settle. You know what I need is I need Poona Ford, and I need Linval Joseph, and I need big guys that I can just rotate all game long in that defensive tackle group, because that's the game almost too. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but on offense, that's your matchup right there. It's, can you eat up the middle of that offensive line and force them into some things they're not exactly comfortable with? They will pivot. They'll work in a Jalen Warren, and they'll bring in some of that outside zone stuff if you make them. But if you don't make them, they'll just get to. It's like when the Bills, when the Dallas Cowboys couldn't stop Dallas couldn't stop Bills from rushing the football. We just kept doing it. Josh Allen finishes with 96 yards passing, but we put up 300 and something yards as a team. Yeah, I think that's where offensively you have to be able to hold them. You have to find a way to hold serve there. People worried about oh my God, if Tyrell Dodson's out, who's going to be our coverage? This is not a coverage linebacker game.
Jordan Poyer drops into the blocks. You've got to stop the run between the tackles, and you've got to mitigate the big play from George Pickens. That's what you're worried about if you're Buffalo, because I think a lot of Bills fans listening to this might be surprised to find out that George Pickens actually had over 1,000 yards receiving this season. When you hear George Pickens, you're like, yeah, he had a couple of long touchdowns, but there's no way they threw him the ball enough to get 1,000 yards receiving, right? And he had over 1,000 yards this season, and that's because he's got that explosive play in him. So you've got to figure out a way to mitigate that, keep him in front of you. Maybe a timely DPI like Dane Jackson had against Tyreek Hill, where he just kind of grabbed him because he's like, there's nobody behind me. Like, you got to figure out a way to mitigate that, because you're gonna force Mason Rudolph to throw, and then when he does, you've got to keep them from catching the ball and taking it 70 yards.
But that's also a reason that I'm confident, because I look at that and I go, that's an intelligent football play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That's a heads up play.
I love how it says Ed. I'd never call you Ed.
I know.
Ed. So EJ, this idea that you need to have DBs smart enough to know, hey, I see this young man's about to take off and go to the races. I'll give you 20 to keep you from getting 60. That's just smart.
I'm not at all mad. That was a good play by Dane, and we know Dane. He's literally the first guy that Brett and I ever interviewed together at the Senior Bowl in 2020. I loved him because he was a dog, and his game against Virginia was an all-out war. And I was like, since when is Pitt and Virginia like a knife fight in an alley? But Dane's a great player, and he understands that kind of thing. And it's going to be interesting. I hate to talk about the refs. We've talked about the refs a lot this year, more than I would have liked to, more than I ever liked to. But it is going to be very interesting to see how this game gets called down the field. Because if this game gets sort of that playoff swallow the whistle treatment, like, you can half turn your head around, grab one of Pickens' arms and pull it down, and it might not get called. So not only are they not getting, obviously the gain from Pickens making amazing catches because he can do that, but they're also not getting the DPI, which in the NFL is a play all in itself, one of the most effective, third down bailout plays there is. So it's going to be really interesting through the first quarter going both ways to see, because Steelers defensive backs also very physical. How much is each team getting away with?
So I'm happy.
How are they going to call it?
Well, I'm happy you brought that up because that's an interesting thing. I love digging into this. Usually at the top of our previews, I get into that.
Mm-hmm.
So Carl Sheffers is our official. Yeah. He has thrown the fewest flags in the entire NFL this season. And take a stab at, over the course of an 18-week season, how many calls his crew has thrown for defensive pass interference. Just take a guess.
I'm going to go 2.5 per game.
12. 12 for the whole
season.
18 games.
Okay, so that's the under. That actually bodes really well for the secondary, because what you talk about with the Bills and the Steelers run game is really what every defensive coordinator in the NFL comes into a week with, which is our opponent's first punch. Their overhand right is, and in the Steelers' case, it is run between the tackles with Najee right now. Again, not the aggregate of the season, but where they're making hay right now. So our job is to stop the overhand right. We have to slip that punch. And once we do that, their counter is insert play here. And in this case, it's probably play action to Pickens down the sideline, or crossing routes versus man to Deontay Johnson if they can get it, if the Bills will give it to him, if they get out of too high. But again, if you can stop the run mostly on the defensive line, or your safeties crashing from depth, both the Buffalo safeties are, pretty good at crashing from depth. So if you can do that, stay in too high, stuff the inside run, you don't need to worry about the Deontay Johnson crossers, because most too high structures are built to contain exactly that. And then you just got to worry about the Pickens play. And if you have a somewhat lenient officials team and you're doing, at that point, one double Pickens, you got him bracketed, you're fine. Go beat him up, right? Mm-hmm. Beat him up off the line, let him go, beat him up at the catch point. If he gets a couple DPIs, that's definitely not going to be enough offense to keep up with Buffalo, with where they are right now in offense and all the things that they have cooking. Kincaid, Cook, Josh, Diggs. You're going to have to score some points. I'm not saying it's going to be a boat race. They're going to play you tough but are you going to get enough points out of 3 or 4 deep DPIs, which would be far more than they've called?
Mm-hmm.
No. Especially at that point, you're playing your percentages and you're just bleeding clock.
Especially with where it'll be, Bills fans are obviously watching Rasul Douglas on the injury report and where he lands, because in games like this where they faced offenses like this, I think of Denver, I think of other teams, but if they have a ref crew where Douglas can play physical, I wouldn't be surprised to just see them put Douglas on Pickens and just say, one-on-one, we're going to let you guys play physical. You guys let you guys fight each other, and we'll worry about Deontay Johnson taking him away in some type of a zone bracket coverage. But if Douglas can take away Pickens and the refs are going to let them play physical to where he can do that, it could be one of those things where it becomes a wrap pretty early in this game.
Now, on the other side of the ball,
Sure.
Defense. They are there's a thing I love. Like, okay, so over the last 15 years of my life, one of my great joys was watching the Ravens-Steelers games because it was nasty. And they had defensive stars. And they didn't just have defensive stars. They had defensive stars who were just mean. They played 70s throwback football, punch you in the mouth football. And then afterwards, they'd shake each other's hand as they're all just bleeding from the fucking lips and noses. And I go, that's to me, like, that's the football I grew up with and I respected. And that's the stuff the Raiders in the 90s and in the 80s where you go, oh, they're borderline cheating in every game. Like, this is
borderline.
They're committing assault on a football field and getting away with it. I liked that because that was the level of physicality I thought the game should be played with. Maybe that's just how it was taught to me, how it was told to me, how I was brought up in it. I don't know. But this Steelers defense is as close as you can find to that probably in the modern day of football. There are not a lot of defensive front sevens who are playing with, from the line to the linebacker core at least, with just a level of assignment sound football, but also with a high level of physicality. They do it well. And I think that's coaching. They don't make a lot of mistakes. Now, a lot of that's TJ Watt that they're not going to have. And we all know the stat already. What are they, 1-10 without TJ Watt? And their one win was against the Bills in our home opener a few years ago, back in 2021. So they're going to be
bit of a different thing now.
Yeah, they're going to be missing a key cog in the machine that is the front seven.
Sure.
At the same time, like, you wouldn't be shocked if I told you they have the best fourth quarter defense in football. They're averaging 3.5 points. Like, they're also top 5 in red zone percentage. One of the league's most aggressive defenses in terms of blitz percentage. What was it? They're tied with Buffalo, 5th in the NFL for quarterback knockdowns. They just throw a lot of beef at you, and they come downhill. They do it quickly. Alex Highsmith, great player. I'm still trying to figure out, and you probably know better than me, what exactly is Highsmith's role in all this? Because I feel like without TJ Watt, he might be their other star in the front seven.
He's a great player. Like, Highsmith has developed in a way that is very Steelers. He was not a high round draft pick. He had nice physical skills, but he was not, I would say, highly regarded as a polished product out of college. He was highly regarded as a prospect and somebody you were going to have to work with. And if you trusted your defensive line coach or your pass rush coach or whatever you were turning him loose to, you were a team that probably wanted him to work on him. That was a value. If you didn't and you needed somebody right now, he was not a guy you were going to pick. And he has developed in a very Steelers kind of way. And I say that with, like, the Bud Duprees of the world, like, where they draft him and they expect that this is going to take 2 or 3 years. And it did with Dupree, it did with Highsmith, and it's paying off beautifully for them. A lot of what Highsmith is, he's a very good individual football player, but you cannot take Watt out of the equation and think that it's going to be the same, because Watt is a future Hall of Famer. Like, I'm very comfortable saying that. No trouble at all. All the numbers support that. His impact supports that. And you can't have a guy like that on your defensive line and say, oh, well, the other guy is just as important. No, when Watt's on the field, they're not doubling Highsmith. He's seeing a lot more singles. If Watt's not there, they're probably going to double Highsmith because he's a dangerous dude. But that's a very different way to enter a football game than saying, hey, I know I'm not going to get any more than 50% of the attention here, and probably less than that. I need to go win my one-on-ones. Now it's, I'm going to have to win versus chips. I'm going to have to win versus true 2-on-1s. And they have other guys as well. I mean, Herbig is a really interesting guy. I liked him coming out. He's progressed a little bit faster as an outside rusher than I thought he would. Their defensive tackle rotation is very dangerous as well. It's not just Watt, but Watt is like,
he's the straw that stirs the drink.
Guy.
Yeah, he's the straw that stirs the drink, and everybody else has been benefiting all year from his presence. And it sucks that now they're going to have to figure out how do we do this without him in the most critical game. They haven't had. There's no runway to this. There's no. Hey, we get a feeling out process, and we get to see what our best, Our
it sounds
fastball
familiar,
is.
though, huh, Drew? Because it's what you guys had to do last year,
yes.
and it didn't work out.
No, it did not. So now I'm looking at this, saying to myself, Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, solid in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not amazing pass rushers, but they give you a lot of beef. They're good against the run. They still have a very aggressive play style, which I think against. We've seen a Bills interior offensive line that is a dice roll from week to week. We don't know what performance we're going to get from them depending on the week. Some weeks they look phenomenal. Some weeks they wilt. And you say, wait, why? How did all three of you play so poorly?
Yeah.
The result of that, like we saw in the Patriots game, is a muddied Bills offense. A team that struggles to find its composure and struggles to keep Josh comfortable to where he can start making plays, start seeing the field. I don't want to ever say Josh gets happy feet, but when he'll
bail early.
He'll bail earlier, and if you can get that, you've already won half the battle. If you can get him to bail on what otherwise would be clean pockets just by getting that pressure up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got him in the field, you've cut the field in half. Now you can, if you're a sound defense, you rally to the ball, you tackle well, you cover the guys on that side of the field. That's where you're going to win. And they seem like they might have some of the tools to do it, right? Like a Landon Roberts seems to be having kind of a career resurgence here with this team. He's not great, but he's at least recognizable again.
Yep.
What do you think about that matchup of this defense as a whole trying to slow down regardless of weather? Josh Allen almost beat the Patriots, who only ran the ball 3 times in a windstorm. Much worse than what we're going to see on Sunday. Probably. I should say allegedly because...
allegedly.
Because these meteorologists, what do they fucking know? What do we pay these people? I believe in the Larry David skit where he's talking about how the weathermen just fudge the weather reports for their own benefit. I'm pretty sure that's happening somewhere right now.
Yes.
I digress. From your vantage, what do you think is the one thing that the Steelers have against the Bills on defense? Where do you think the Bills can make hay against them?
Well, if the interior of the Bills' offensive line doesn't perform and have one of those sort of better than average weeks, the Bills' offense will have a not as good as average week because you will be moving Josh, and if you move Josh, he makes some amazing plays on the run. He also makes some of his dumbest plays on the run.
Yeah.
He is not one of the guys that, when he is clean and has a long time in the pocket, tends to make really boneheaded plays. Yes, it does happen, but many more of those happen when he is moved outside the pocket and he makes a decision late in the down, and those are the ones we sort of throw our hands over our eyes and go, what are you doing? Why did you do that?
And when it works, you're like, look at my quarterback. It's amazing. But then the 3 interceptions that come afterwards, you're like, oh, what the hell?
That's the chaos theory.
I fully agree. But if you are moving him in, and you mentioned the guys, and we didn't even mention Cam Hayward. Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, and Cam Hayward as an interior 3 are as good as you're going to find as a trio, not individual talents, but as a trio in terms of creating pressure and collapsing the pocket. They can do it. So if the Bills come out lame or limp in the middle, they're going to have to adjust on offense. Joe Brady's going to have to whip some stuff up that says, okay, so we know the middle's collapsing. We're going to do some boots and rollouts that are designed so everybody knows we're going to be out there and all the receivers are reacting appropriately. That could be a real problem. If you can't shore up the middle and give him a 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds without pressure directly in his face. Look, I know he's a big guy. I know he's a super tough guy. We all know that. You don't want 300-pounders in your grill in 1.5 seconds. And if they get there, the Bills' offense is going to have to adjust. I'm not saying they can't, but they're going to have to. And they seem to be less comfortable in that situation where they're playing a little bit of catch-up than they are when they're dictating. And again, if you dictate, score points early, stay on rhythm, protect the middle of the offensive line, it's going to be all those fourth quarter defensive stats for the Steelers really aren't going to come into play. They're going to be trailing and unable to score points explosively for the most part, especially given possible alleged weather conditions. So So if you hold that together in the beginning, your job in the end is going to be a lot easier.
Now, you said I forgot Cam Hayward. I didn't. In fact, I have a whole thing lined up because he's my favorite Steeler. He's my favorite active Steeler.
Sure.
Because, again, we talk about tough guy football. We talk about throwback style football. Cam Hayward is quintessential. In fact, he may be one of the last true holdovers of that old throwback style of football where he's just this big grizzly bear of a man who goes in there and clubs his way into the backfield, and he has some technique, but it's not about finesse, it's power, and he just manhandles offensive linemen, and he manhandles anybody who gets in his way, and he's hard-nosed even with his own teammates. So it's that thing of he is one of the last tough guys. He's a dying breed. I love it. I love the fact that I'm lucky enough I get to see Cam Hayward play another game in person.
Yep.
My eyes are always glued in the trenches because that's where my interest is how blocking happens in the NFL, how this develops, how pass rush moves happen in real time. I'm going to be watching Cam Hayward because a part of me feels like we may be nearing the end here.
Yeah.
And you take a look at where he's been historically and over the years for his career, it just feels that way. You know, he came off a season last year, he had 58 total pressures. Now he's had 18.
Yeah, it's winding down for him, and that's because of the position he plays and the way he plays it. It's amazing he's played it as long as he has, staying with that style. I would not call his journey through the NFL evolutionary.
No.
He is a guy that's going to stand in there, and it's a pack-a-lunch assignment. If you draw Cam Hayward for the day and you're on the offensive line, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get the hell beat out of you. You're going to lose some. He's going to run you over a couple of times. I would say break even this season. If you break even against Cam Hayward, you had a really solid day.
And I think one of my favorite things about him is I read it, but then I also witnessed it in game where he will absolutely dominate his man, just crush a guy. He might help you up, but at the same time, for him, it's very mechanical. He's just until this game is over, I have no emotion about this unless I'm mad at you. But then when the game's over, you watch him walk around and he's shaking all the linemen's hands and he's talking to people, and
he appreciates it. He's been there a long time. This is like the guy at your work that's been there for 25 years and he's won all the awards, and he knows he's not going to work there for more than 2 or 3 more years. And so every Christmas party is a bit like, hey, this is good. Enjoy this. This is a thing that's important.
I love him, and I feel like I'm getting close. I feel like this might be my last opportunity to see him in person. So I'm going to I'm going to embrace that. I really do believe, for his statistical things, for all the heart and soul that he is for that team right now, especially without TJ Watt, I think you could see him probably try to give one of his last great performances, knowing that there's no TJ Watt, knowing that there's younger players who are looking to somebody to make a play. I'm excited to see it's perverse because it's against my team, but I'm excited to see what he does in this game. And if it's nothing,
you know me, it's not perverse. It's good football, and that's the reason I do what I do, and to an extent, you all do what you do. Is we like to see good football, and even if good football occurs against our team, which it often does, we can appreciate it as look. Aaron Rodgers is not the most popular guy right now, and rightfully so. He's done some super stupid shit right now.
He's the living version of the meme where the guy's riding his bike and then takes a stick and puts it in the spokes and then falls 100%. Down and goes, "Why does everyone hate? Oh my God, I can't believe this happened to me."
Outside of that, he crushed my team regularly for years, and I hate him for that. That does not mean I did not appreciate watching Aaron Rodgers play quarterback in those MVP years when he was at his heights, and you were just like, I'm sorry, this is great football. If this was on my team, I would be cheering as loud as I possibly could. Of course, I never will be because I'm a Bears fan, but, that aside, watching great players play football against your team can still be enjoyable because, and I've gone to a great many NFL games where I've been I'd like this team to win, but that guy is kicking their ass today, and that is really cool to see. Like, people are going to remember, man, that guy came in here, and opposing fans are going to hate him, but there's that begrudging respect of, you're doing what we wish we were doing. We just wish you were doing it on our team.
That's going to be how I kind of watch Cam Hayward walk off the field when this is over.
For sure. So,
guys, as we shut this thing down for tonight, predictions. Let's go around the room. I want to start with our guest, EJ. If you had to try to predict, Chris, first of all, score, or are we just picking the spread?
I mean, I'll give you a score. I mean, the spread's 10, which I don't know what our overall record is.
Our record against the spread is terrible.
Against the spread when it's over 10.
Do you know what our record against
when
the
it's
spread is?
When it's over 10.
I don't know what it is against the spread. I should
over
know.
10. Over 10.
Double digit spread.
Yes.
Is what you're looking at.
Yeah, I don't know what our record is. Double digit spread.
Chris,
I would assume
honestly,
Pittsburgh
if you
could
have
cover.
any listeners that don't gamble, I was going to say for your listeners that don't gamble, but then I realized who I was talking to.
Yeah.
For the one listener that doesn't gamble, a spread of 10 in the NFL is downright disrespectful. They're like, no, it's over.
It's over before they kick off. This is a formality. The Bills are 8-12 against the spread in their last 20 games.
Well, what is it when it's double digits? That's what I'm talking about. When it's
I'm
a double-digit spread, they can't cover.
So the spread was 14. The spread was minus 14.
This is going to take too long, Chris. This is going to take too long.
This is it. I'm just looking
for context, for people wondering, like 10 is a big number. The spreads this week, it's the Bills are 10.5-point favorites. The Cowboys are 7.5-point favorites against the Packers. Every other game is 3 points or less. So there are two games that Vegas has absolutely zero confidence in being anything resembling a close football game. And then there's the Bills Steelers and the Cowboys Packers. So
I bet it'll be
just
20-13 Buffalo.
So Chris, let's just do score because
20-13 Buffalo.
20-13. What do you got, Ryan?
I think, and I know we'll cover it more. I think this is a game where you've got a tale of two Joshes. Is Josh going to come out like he did against Miami in the second half and just, I'm the best player on this hemisphere of Earth, and I'm going to just will the team to victory? First quarterback in NFL history with 350-plus rushing or passing yards, 65-plus rushing yards, and 75+% completion percentage in a game. Like, is that the Josh you're going to get? If that's the case, this is a 3-touchdown game. Pittsburgh cannot keep up if Josh Allen is just going to go nuclear and take care of business. If Josh is going to go the other side nuclear and turn the ball over, because that's what Pittsburgh does really well, is force quarterbacks into making bad decisions, and Josh is one of the best in the business at making bad decisions when he's not on, this game's going to be close. I don't think Buffalo loses this game. I don't think the Steelers really have much of a path to victory. I think it's a very narrow one. At the end of the day, again, it's going to come down to Josh. I think that Josh, in his post-game press conference after Miami, said the last two drives, the ball was coming out of my hand better than it has all season. If that's the case, then the NFL has a big problem on its hands. Because a Sean McDermott-led defense with a Josh Allen who can go out and put up 410 yards of offense and 3 touchdowns is better than anybody else on the planet. And that's what EJ talked about, right? My guy's better than your guy 9 times out of 10. Today's Sunday, I'll take him twice. And I think Buffalo is just going to one of those run away and hide type of games. I think it's going to be 27-10 Buffalo. I think they're just going to run away with this, and I don't think Pittsburgh can adjust with Mason Rudolph at quarterback enough to keep up.
Well, you're sitting next to me, so you better hope, because if not, I'm going to be the worst human being.
You're already the worst. We had to boot you. We had to kick Drew out of our group chat this Sunday because he was actively making it difficult for other people to participate in game conversation as soon as Buffalo went down. He just comes in with like 20 ha-has in one comment, and it's just you're only in when it's bad. You're gone when it's good. You're already insufferable.
Well, because I'm really celebrating, and I'm celebrating in real life. I only come here because I have to say horrible things I can't say to my wife and children. Like, I'm pretty sure I said at one point I hoped Alex. Well, can't. I'm pretty sure I said in our group chat that I hoped Head referee Alex Kemp was kidnapped by Lebanese
Yes, you did.
terrorists.
You did. Can confirm.
I was like, I hope that's a thing that happens, and just fired it off into the group chat. And they're like, what? Get him out of here.
Go away.
Go away.
Oh,
You only come in here to carpet bomb us with the grossest negativity. EJ,
Right.
when you look at this game from a distance, you have no horse in the race. What do you see?
I'd say 21-10. I think the 10 for the Steelers part is, combination of weather, where their offense is, the defense they're playing against. I would imagine that only 3 of those points probably come early. They might get a late touchdown, but it's not going to be a pivotal one. It's not even probably going to be one that, moves them to get into a hurry-up offense like they've got a chance. They may get one, but it's just going to be basically padding the score. I'll give the Bills 3 touchdowns at home. Weather be damned. The fourth, I don't know if they're going to make it to 28. Conditions aren't going to be great. I don't think they're going to need it. Playoff football tends to, ratchet down. Everybody gets a little bit more conservative. Everybody plays a little bit tighter, a little bit more physical.
Yes.
So where I would normally think, if this is the week, 15 game, and both these teams are about where they are now, and they're just playing on a neutral field, I give the Bills 4 touchdowns. I give the Steelers maybe 15 points, but it's the playoffs. The weather's going to be bad. It's in Buffalo. I'd say Buffalo gets 3 touchdowns. Steelers get 10 points in some variation of that.
Yeah, I was going to say playoffs are always tough. It's always tough, and it gets hard, and it gets tougher the farther you go, which is why if you think back to last year, everyone was floored when Kansas City, Cincinnati, it's a 14-point game in the fourth quarter, and it's dead nuts, and everyone's punting, and it's this ball control battle that everyone goes, wait, these are explosive offenses. You go, yeah, but it's the playoffs. But defenses are cheating and taking liberties, and they're playing hard, and they're playing physical, and offenses are trying not to be wrong.
Yes.
Trying not to make you're not in a tight game. You're trying not to make the play that turns the game, that ends your season. So it's almost counterintuitive when you watch these Star Wars type aerial things, and that's not what playoff football is. And I think that the Bills have finally figured out how to play that, how to win ugly, and how to do these things. I think I'm not willing to be as confident as the rest of you. I think that they win this thing by a score, and it's going to happen sometime in the third quarter, and they're going to force Mason Rudolph's hand, and that's where this thing's going to wilt. Realistically, I think the Steelers' defense probably holds serve for the first half, and that's because, again, pessimist, because I'm not a good person. I'm not a good fan. I'm not a good podcast host. I'm a pretty terrible human being all the way around, and most people don't know it. They only find out in spurts, and they go, oh, that guy, he's awful. And yet you're all still here, and that's why I love you. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. EJ, we love having you. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, all your bootleg stuff, all of the Bears stuff, because I love you, and I love all of your content. Even can I admit this? I sometimes listen to your Bears content, and I do giggle a little because I go, he's so miserable.
He is so miserable.
He's trying to hide his misery.
He's trying to be objective, but when he's objective, everybody just goes, he's miserable. And I'm like, well, that's because the team's miserable. Like, they really are. And if you're looking at it glass half full, it's a different thing. But folks can find the content, Bootleg Football. Just type it into the YouTube search algorithm. You'll find all of our stuff there. 3 pieces a week during the regular season. Right now, it's down to 1 to 2. And draft content starting soon. That's a big part of our year, as you mentioned before. My Bears content for the year is over. Last Bears Over Beers was last Wednesday, a week ago. So again, we'll do some draft focused content a little bit less often than bootleg, but you can find that on Windy City Gridiron, Second City Gridiron on YouTube. And that's where most of my stuff is. Follow me on Twitter. I refuse to call it X, @FootballEJ, to keep up on all the stuff and where we're going.
The next time you come to town, I'm going to need a bottle of Malort.
Oh, dude.
Have you
actually had it?
No, and I'm not scared.
You're not scared of anything. I could give you gasoline and you'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll try it.
I'll try it.
Which is close. No, Malort for the uninitiated is is a thing, and the first word overwhelmingly, just like, the last word before people die is usually oh shit. Like the first word after trying Malort overwhelmingly is why.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't wait. I'm excited after seeing what it did to Brett. I'm not going to lie to you. I sometimes go back and rewatch that live stream.
Oh, no, we made a clip out of it. It was, and there are multiple things. I actually get this. You'll appreciate this. Both Drew and Chris will appreciate this. I had one of our bootleg viewers from overseas who's Swedish say, hey, I want to send you an actual bottle of what Malort is, not Malort the brand, but the type of liqueur that Malort is, because he said, I don't think Brett treats it fairly. And he said, the real stuff is better. So how do I send you a bottle so that you can basically sort of champion my liqueur and give it its good name back after, Brett's been dragging it through the mud? I was like, yes, this is the weirdest job I've ever had. Yes. Absolutely 100%. And I love it.
Guys, I love it. I love EJ. I love all of this conversation. I love the fact that we get to go watch the Bills play a playoff game at home as the number 2 seed.
As it should be.
As it should be. It's almost like most of the season was just this weird fever dream, and it didn't happen.
You're looking around at the end going, I don't know how we got there, but I think this is where we were supposed to be at the end.
I'm not going to lie. I've spent most of my weekends for the last 20 years that way.
What being a Bills fan is, you just kind of look around the rubble and go, how the hell did we get here?
Guys, this has been fun, but we got to get the hell out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. That's Ryan Lasel. That's EJ Snyder. This has been your wild card preview.